Hello friends, how are you? I hope you are feeling good, happy, and enjoying your life. Thank you so much for joining my video today. In this real British English story, we will learn together in a simple and enjoyable way. Through engaging storytelling, you'll improve your listening and reading skills with subtitles and practice at the perfect B1, B2 intermediate level. We'll explore the Seaside Café Adventure, build useful everyday vocabulary and phrases, and enjoy modern, original British English content. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Brit Tale. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. When we think about learning British English, it can sometimes feel like a serious task filled with grammar rules, vocabulary lists, and exercises that never seem to end. But one of the most effective and enjoyable ways to improve your English is through storytelling. Stories have a natural way of pulling us in, capturing our attention, and keeping us motivated to listen and follow along. Instead of just memorizing words, you hear them in action, connected to people, places, and feelings. This makes the language easier to remember and far more enjoyable to learn. When we listen to a story, we don't just hear English, we experience it, and that is where true learning begins. Through engaging storytelling, learners connect with the rhythm, tone, and melody of British English. It's not only about understanding each word, but also about catching how sentences flow and how ideas connect. Listening to a story set in a familiar yet interesting situation, such as a seaside cafe adventure, gives us both context and meaning. You're not just hearing words like partnership or routine, you're seeing them come alive through characters, decisions, and emotions. This type of learning stays with you because you can imagine the scene and feel part of it. Another benefit of storytelling is the emotional connection it creates. When we enjoy what we're listening to, our brain becomes more active and we remember better. Think about how easily you recall a favorite movie or book compared to a page from a grammar textbook. That's the power of stories, they stay with you. In English learning, this means you remember new vocabulary naturally because it is tied to a picture, a sound, or even a feeling in the story. Instead of forcing yourself to study, you find yourself looking forward to the next part of the adventure. Storytelling also allows us to practice listening in a way that feels natural. You begin to notice everyday phrases, expressions, and even little details of pronunciation that you might miss in traditional lessons. It is like stepping into a real conversation, but in a safe and supportive environment. Over time, this exposure helps you to not only understand British English better, but also to feel more confident using it yourself. Learning British English through engaging storytelling is about making the journey enjoyable, meaningful, and memorable. It transforms English from something you study into something you live. When we think about becoming better in English, one of the biggest challenges is often listening. Many learners say that they can read English well, but when they hear it spoken quickly, especially with a natural British accent, it feels difficult to keep up. This is where using subtitles makes such a difference. Subtitles give us the bridge between what we hear and what we read. They allow us to connect the sound of English words with the way they are written, and that combination helps us to understand much more clearly. When we listen and read at the same time, the brain works on two levels, hearing the pronunciation and seeing the spelling. This makes the language easier to recognize and remember. At first, some learners worry that subtitles will distract them or stop them from listening carefully. But actually, the opposite is true. Subtitles are like a guide that supports you as you get used to the natural speed of spoken English. They show you the exact words being spoken, so you don't have to guess or feel lost. Over time, as you keep practicing, you begin to rely less on the subtitles, and your listening skills grow stronger. This is because your ears start to catch more of the language on their own, and you build the confidence to follow along without needing every single word written down. Another advantage is that subtitles improve your reading skills without you even realizing it. Each time you watch and read along, you are practicing sight recognition of words and phrases. You become faster at recognizing common vocabulary and sentence patterns, which makes your reading smoother and more natural. This means that not only are you improving your listening, but you are also becoming a stronger reader at the same time. Subtitles also give you the chance to notice details you might miss otherwise. For example, you may hear a phrase like "to take shape," but not fully understand it just by sound. When you see it written, it becomes clear, and then you can connect it back to the story. These small discoveries are what help you expand your vocabulary and make your English richer and more accurate. Improving listening and reading skills with subtitles is about making progress step by step, with the support of both sound and text working together. It creates a smoother path to understanding and helps every learner feel that English is not only possible but also enjoyable. When learning a language, it is very important to choose the right level of practice. If the material is too easy, you will not feel challenged and your progress will be slow. If it is too difficult, you may become frustrated and lose motivation. That is why practice at the intermediate level, especially for B1, B2 learners, is so valuable. At this stage, you already have a basic understanding of English. You can introduce yourself, talk about daily routines, and understand simple conversations. But now the goal is to move beyond survival English and start communicating with more fluency, confidence, and accuracy. Intermediate practice provides exactly the right balance. It introduces new vocabulary and grammar that are slightly above your current comfort zone, while still being understandable with some effort. For example, you may already know the word "make bigger," but at this level, you will learn the word "extend." You may understand things are going well, but now you learn the phrase "to take shape." These are the kinds of expressions that make your English sound more natural and closer to the way native speakers communicate. At B1, B2 level, practice also focuses on everyday topics that are useful in real life, such as work, hobbies, travel, and relationships. A story like a Seaside Café Adventure fits perfectly because it combines interesting characters with familiar situations. You can follow the challenges of running a cafe, the routines of the staff, and the emotions of the owners, all while learning words and phrases you could use yourself. This makes the learning experience more practical and memorable because the language is connected to real life contexts instead of abstract exercises. Another strength of intermediate practice is that it encourages you to think more in English rather than translating everything back into your first language. When you listen to a story and read along, your mind begins to connect ideas directly in English. This reduces hesitation and helps you to express yourself more smoothly. Over time, this builds not only stronger skills, but also greater confidence. Intermediate level practice for B1, B2 learners is not just about learning new words. It is about bridging the gap between basic understanding and true fluency. It gives you the tools to move forward with clarity, confidence, and purpose in your English journey. Every story has the power to transport us to a new place, and the Seaside Café Adventure does exactly that. It allows us to step into the lives of characters who decide to take a chance, follow their dreams, and open a small cafe by the sea. Right from the beginning, you can imagine the setting, the fresh smell of salt in the air, the sound of waves crashing in the background, and the excitement of preparing something new. This kind of story feels warm and inviting, and it keeps us curious about what will happen next. As learners, we don't just follow the words. We follow the emotions, the struggles, and the successes of the people in the story. That connection makes learning English much more enjoyable and meaningful. The Café Adventure is not only about running a business. It is also about teamwork, creativity, and the challenges of starting something from the ground up. When the characters plan their café, choose their menu, and welcome their first customers, we get to hear and learn useful words and expressions related to preparation, routine, and partnership. These words are not just presented in isolation. They are part of the story, which makes them easier to remember. For example, when staff get ready for the day, or when the dogs wag their tails happily around the cafe, the vocabulary becomes linked with vivid images that stay in your mind long after the story ends. Exploring this adventure also teaches us about resilience and problem solving. Just like in real life, things do not always go according to plan. The characters may face difficulties, such as unexpected expenses, demanding customers, or the need to extend their cafe to make more space. Each challenge introduces new vocabulary and situations that learners can connect to, while also seeing how English is used in realistic conversations. This adds depth to the practice, as it shows how language is not only about words, but also about navigating experiences. The Seaside Café Adventure invites us to learn in a natural way, through a journey filled with charm, challenges, and discovery. It reminds us that learning English can be more than study. It can be a story that carries us along and inspires us to keep going. One of the most rewarding parts of learning English is building vocabulary that you can actually use in everyday life. It is not enough to simply know long lists of words. What matters is being able to use them naturally in real conversations. That is why focusing on everyday vocabulary and phrases is so important. These are the words and expressions that help you talk about your routines, your work, your feelings, and your experiences. They are the building blocks of real communication, and once you master them, you feel more confident expressing yourself in different situations. Everyday vocabulary often comes alive best in stories, because you see how it fits into real situations. For example, instead of learning the word to get, you might come across to acquire something in the cafe story. Rather than just memorizing the word happy, you see how the phrase dogs wagging their tails describes joy in a natural, vivid way. These kinds of examples show you not only the meaning of the words, but also the feeling behind them. They are much easier to remember because they are tied to moments in the story, not just written on a list. Phrases are especially powerful because they help you sound more natural. English is full of expressions like to take shape, to be popular, or to extend. On their own, these phrases may seem simple, but in real conversations, they are what make you sound fluent and connected to the language. When you hear them in the Seaside Café Adventure, you see exactly how people use them in context. That way, when it's your turn to speak, you can use them with confidence, knowing they fit naturally into the flow of conversation. The more you practice with these useful words and phrases, the more automatic they become. Instead of pausing to think or translate in your head, you can respond more quickly. This creates smoother communication and gives you the feeling that you are truly moving forward in your English journey. It is like building a toolkit. You may not need every word all the time, but when the right moment comes, you have exactly what you need ready to use. Building useful everyday vocabulary and phrases is what transforms English learning from theory into practice, making the language part of your daily life and giving you the freedom to express yourself with ease. One of the things that makes learning truly enjoyable is engaging with content that feels fresh, modern, and original. When we hear English that is used in everyday life rather than just textbook examples, it becomes easier to connect with. Modern British English reflects the way people actually speak today, with phrases, expressions, and vocabulary that are part of real conversations. This is why stories written in contemporary style are so powerful for learners. They do not just give you grammar rules or old-fashioned dialogue. They give you language that you can imagine hearing on the street, in a cafe, or in a workplace. That connection between learning and real life makes every practice session feel meaningful. Original content is equally important because it brings something new and exciting to the learning experience. Instead of reading or listening to the same old texts that everyone has already studied, original stories surprise you with fresh situations, unique characters, and settings that hold your attention. For example, a Seaside Café adventure is not only entertaining, but it also provides opportunities to explore a wide range of vocabulary related to food, work, teamwork, and even emotions. You get to enjoy the twists of the story while learning new language naturally along the way. The advantage of this kind of content is that it keeps learners motivated. When you enjoy what you are listening to or reading, you want to continue. You don't feel like you are forcing yourself to study. Instead, you are drawn in by curiosity. You want to know what happens next, how the characters will solve their problems, and what new challenges they will face. This enjoyment is what makes the vocabulary stick, because the story gives the words a place to live in your memory. Modern British English content also introduces learners to cultural details that make the language richer. The way characters interact, the humor they use, or the situations they face all reflect aspects of British life and communication. These small details give you a deeper understanding of not just the words, but the culture behind them. Enjoying modern, original British English content is about making learning both practical and enjoyable, giving you the chance to grow your skills while feeling fully engaged in the story. Thank you, my friends, for watching this story with me today. I hope you enjoyed learning British English through engaging storytelling and felt how subtitles can really improve your listening and reading skills. This was perfect practice for B1, B2 learners with an exciting Seaside Café adventure full of useful everyday vocabulary and phrases. Together, we enjoyed modern, original British English content designed to make learning natural and fun. Keep practicing, stay confident, and remember that every story brings you closer to fluency. Please like, share, and subscribe to Brit Tale. And until next time, goodbye and take care.